Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来 to another segment on Asian or Chinese histories, cultures, and folklore. Quite often in China, especially, and when you talk to Chinese people, myself included, like to complain and criticize the Mongols for their brutality when they invaded China, the Japanese for all the atrocities they committed when they invaded China, the Russians for all the horrible things they did in northern China. But honestly, if we want to totally put aside our racial bias and really take a closer look at Chinese history throughout the ages, we would actually find that Chinese people committed just as much atrocity against our own people when comparing to some of these outsiders and invaders such as Mongols and Japanese people. Some of the stuff that have been done by Chinese people to our own people have been even worse. Nowadays, if there's an unexplained violent incident, such as some crazy guys driving their car through a crowd of people, or someone who is so fed up with life, and they commit mass stabbing or mass shooting, this kind of unprovoked, uh, uh, horrifying incidents in Mandarin is often called 宪宗事件, or 张献忠事件. 事件 means incident. 宪宗, or in some cases 张献忠, is actually the name of a person. This person committed such atrocities that his name is synonymous with violent, unprovoked uh, incidences. How about that? So, who is this Zhang Xianzhong, and why is his name synonymous with violent, criminal uh, attacks and such cases? Today, we are going to take a closer look at this Zhang Xianzhong, who, if you read Chinese history books, especially from China, a lot of times they even don't talk about him at all, or when they talk about him, they actually try to put a positive spin on Zhang Xianzhong, and say that he was the leader of the People's Rebellion. He represented the people. He was trying to overthrow the rich people, overthrow the imperial China, and so on and so on. He was a great leader of the rebellion, and so on and so on. Don't believe any of that. Okay, the most of that is just propaganda because the textbooks in China have to be approved by the Communist Party, and the Communist Party cannot uh, allow some of their folk heroes to become mass murderers and serial murderers and serial rapists and stuff like that. So they try to put a positive spin on Zhang Xianzong and other people who have led rebellion. Such, for example, the White Lotus Society during the Qing Dynasty, they committed horrible, horrible things, not just against the imperial troop, but against civilians as well. But because they were a grassroots movement created by peasants, so the Communist Party tried to ignore the atrocities they have committed and try to look at them in a more positive light in their education materials. Okay, so that's purely just political device. We can ignore that. Today, I'm going to give you look at who exactly was Zhang Xianzong, the real person, the devil, the yellow tiger of Ming Dynasty. Born 1606, died 1647. Zhang Xianzong was described to be a slender and lean and very tall man with yellowish complexion. His ferocity in battle uh, earned him the nickname the Yellow Tiger, Huang Hu, the Yellow Tiger. Prior to starting the rebellion against the imperial emperor, the imperial government, Zhang Xianzong was actually not a peasant, despite what the Communist Party want to tell you, despite what the Chinese textbook want to tell you. He was not a peasant. No, he was not a farmer. So the rebellion he started got nothing to do with wanting the rights for peasants, wanting equality for farmers. It got nothing to do with that. Zhang Xianzong was one of the government workers. In fact, he was actually a police officer. Obviously, they did not call them police officer at that time. He worked for the magistrate. He was one of the people that routinely get sent out to arrest people. So he was basically a police officer at the time. And then um, there's no clear record on what he did, but he did something so bad that they threw him out of the police force, and as punishment, they sent him to join the military. He had to serve time as an imperial soldier, and he did not like that. So rather than serving in the military, he deserted, and with all the soldiers that deserted with him, they robbed and pillaged and raped their way across China and started their own rebellion against the emperor. Roughly around 1634 or around that time, Zhang Xianzong, after losing quite a few battles against the imperial troop and surrendered multiple times, this guy was not uh, like your typical warrior heroes. Like he wasn't the kind of rebel that would say, "I will go down fighting" or "I'll never surrender." No, that's not Zhang Xianzong. He lost, and then he surrendered, and then he would obey the law for a few years, and then he would rise up in rebellion again. So this guy was like a serious troublemaker, and every time he gets smacked down by the imperial troop, he would behave himself for a year or so, and then he would rise up again. So by 1634-ish, he and his army, his rebels, invaded Sichuan province. If that sounds familiar, because a lot of you know about Sichuan hot sauce, Sichuan food. Sichuan is a province in China that is famous for their beautiful women and their spicy food. So Zhang Xianzong and his rebels invaded Sichuan province around 1634. And from there on, for the next 10 to 12 years, they committed such atrocity that some of it is uh, just hair raising. Okay, some of it is just revolting. Well, all of it is revolting. And I want to take this chance because we are going to go into talking about some of the documented cases. And I want to give you guys a warning that this may be triggering for some people. If talking about rape and murder and wholesale slaughter of people really bother you. I mean, it should bother you, but if it really, really bothers you, then you might want to stop the video now. So as I said, Zhang Xianzong committed such atrocity in Sichuan province after invading the province and dubbing himself the King of the West. And he literally took over an entire province and called himself the King of the West. This got nothing to do whatsoever with the King of the West in Lord of the Ring or any of other your fantasy books. This is a real guy, real mass killer, mass murderer, serial killer that dubbed himself the King of the West after his rebels took over the entire province. How many people did he kill? Well, no one knows for sure, but let me give you a ballpark to wrap your head around. In 16, 1630 ish, uh, the census for Sichuan province reflected about 4 million people. That was the population of Sichuan province around 1630. 30 years later, after the reign of Zhang Xianzong, after Zhang Xianzong had already died, 30 odd years later, when they did another census for Sichuan province, guess how many people left? Less than 200,000. Okay, so even if we allow that some of those people died of sickness, some of those people ran away, and so on, the province literally went from 4 million people to less than 200,000 people. And a lot of that can be attributed to the amount of people Zhang Xianzong and his people murdered. For instance, Zhang Xianzong was said to murder people and throw their corpses into the lakes and rivers that the rivers wouldn't flow. The rivers would plug up because of the amount of corpses and bones in the water, and no one could drink the water because it's so polluted with bodily fluid. A lot of other people kill people in maybe tens or hundreds. Zhang Xianzong was known to murder people in tens of thousands. There was one time when Zhang Xianzong came down with the flu. He prayed to Buddha and he said, Buddha, if you make me feel better, I will uh, present a great sacrifice for you. I will do a great sacrifice in your name. Next week, Zhang Xianzong, in fact, felt better. So, in honoring his word to Buddha, he captured over 10,000 women. And these were all women that had bound feet. So, those of you that know that Chinese women back then, a lot of them, especially the noble women, bound their feet so they would have small feet. So Zhang Xianzong rounded up all the women he could find that had bound feet, and he had all of their feet cut off. The women bled to death while their feet were sacrificed to Buddha like it was some kind of gruesome trophy. Even his own mistresses, those of them that had bound feet, were brutally sacrificed as well. Speaking of mistresses, when Zhang Xianzong was uh, uh, running over the place with his rebel army, he decided that because a lot of the rebels would have their whole family with them, they would have the wives and children and elderly parents traveling with them while they were fighting a guerrilla war against the imperial troop. Zhang Xianzong decided that the family members were slowing down everybody. This is why his unit was losing so much because they moved so slowly because of these family members. So, in a fit of rage, he had everybody, including himself, family members, executed. Yeah, I don't know why his people, his men, did not rebel when that happened, but for some reason, they continued to follow him even after he ordered them to execute their family members. Now, while some other leaders were good at killing other people, a lot of leaders, at least, wouldn't kill their own family members like that, right? Well, this was not the only time. We already talked about Zhang Xianzong killing off everybody's family members and his own family members, and then using the feet of his mistresses as sacrifice to Buddha. There was another time when Zhang Xianzong, during dinner, called out to his young son. Nothing important, just like, you and I sitting across the dinner table, and you say, "Hey, Johnny." Well, maybe his son was, I don't know, thinking about something, busy with something, daydreaming. The son, who was a young boy at the time, did not answer his father's call. Zhang Xianzong immediately ordered to have the boy put to death. And that was not even the most ridiculous. The most ridiculous part of this was next day, when he woke up, he missed his son and he got mad and he said, "How come you guys did not stop me from killing my son?" So he had 20 of his wives and mistresses put to death because they did not try to stop him when he ordered his son killed. Yeah, that is the kind of psychotic, weird, insane person we are talking about. In addition to his love of wholesale slaughter of people, Zhang Xianzong also had many, many horrifying ways of torturing people and doing killing people as well. For example, one of his favorite pastime was to skin people alive, and after he removed skins from all the skins from the body, he would then throw the still living, still breathing person out and let them slowly die an agonizing death without any skin on their body. He was also documented to love raping daughters in front of father and wives in front of husbands and all that stuff. He loved doing that to people before putting the entire family to death. A lot of these atrocities that Zhang Xianzong had committed were not documented at the time by other people because keep in mind, at that time, China was thrown into chaos. There were very few people documenting stuff like this. Not to mention, Zhang Xianzong also had a lot of scholars murdered. There was one time when he called a bunch of scholars to his military camp, telling them that he was going to throw a feast in their honor. When the scholars showed up, they were brutally cut down by soldiers. So, how did people eventually find out what Zhang Xinzong did? All the horrible things he did. It was because of a pair of missionaries, priests from one of them was from Italy, and one of them was from Portugal. This pair of priests were captured by Zhang Xianzong and kept around him. He wanted them to teach him geography, English, teach him history. He wanted them to indulge him and tell him stories. In return, he very ruthlessly showed them every single murder he committed. Every time he had someone put down, Every time he's skinning someone alive, anytime he's raping someone, he would make these two priests watch. It wasn't until Zhang Xianzong was finally killed that these priests returned to their own country. And much later, in 1916, another missionary came to China and through a series of events came across the handwritten journals by these two priests and translated them for the world to see what kind of crazy monster Zhang Xianzong was. In 1647, Zhang Xianzhong's luck finally ran out, or you can say karma finally caught up to this guy. During one of the battle against the imperial army, he was shot through the body with an arrow. The arrow pinned him to the ground like a bug, and he died screaming while his men were being slaughtered by the imperial soldier. In the legacies that were left behind by this demonic person, there's one that people still talk about today, a stone tablet by the name of Qi Sha Bei, translation, the seven kill tablet. On this tablet, Zhang Xianzong carved the following words: Gods gave us everything. We give them nothing. Kill, 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 kill.